Today we're making tomato galette. This is a recipe that I make often during the tomato season when they're in abundance. It's a perfect dish to serve for weekend breakfasts, brunches, or when you're craving something buttery and savory. If you're not familiar with a galette, it is basically a free-form tart that is similar to a pie. However, instead of filling and baking the dough in a pie plate, you do all of that on a sheet pan. In other words, there's no stressing about fitting the dough into the tart pan or cramping the sides to make it look picture perfect. It is very rustic, and to me, it's much easier and quicker than putting together a pie. To bring you this recipe, I am partnering with one of my favorite Vermont brands, Vermont Creamery. I've been working with them for over 4 years now and have had a chance to taste and cook with almost all of their products and cannot recommend them enough. In this tomato galette recipe, we will use Vermont Creamery's butter to make my foolproof galette dough and make a filling using their fresh goat cheese to spread over the dough before topping it off with sliced heirloom tomatoes. So, grab some tomatoes and let's make a delicious tomato galette together. We'll start with making the galette dough. Place 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt into the bowl of a food processor. Pause a few times to mix. Cut up 10 tablespoons of cold unsalted butter into small pieces. As it is with every pie dough recipe, in order to get that flaky, delicious buttery dough, it is very important that your butter is cold. Add the butter into the processor and pulse 8 to 10 times until it resembles small clumps. Or looks like this. Turn the machine on and add in 4 tablespoons of ice cold water in 1 tablespoon increments. At this point, it should start to come together and form into a ball. If it doesn't, then add in more water in 1 tablespoon increments until it does. Transfer onto a lightly floured surface. Form into a 4-inch disc. And wrap with plastic. Place in the fridge for at least 1 hour. You can make the dough a day in advance and keep it in the fridge, or do what I do, make several batches of this, wrap them tightly and keep them in the freezer for up to a month. It really comes handy to have them around when you want to make a quick galette. As the dough is resting in the fridge, we will make the fresh goat cheese mixture to spread on the dough. Into a bowl, place 4 ounces of goat cheese that is at room temperature. Chop both the white and green parts of a stalk of scallion thinly and place it into the bowl. Add in 1/2 teaspoon of lemon zest and 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice. And finally, season it with 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt and 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. At this point, if you have it, you can add fresh herbs into the mixture as well. I had some fresh chives in the fridge, so I'll add them in. Next, we'll prep the tomatoes, but before then, take out the galette dough from the fridge to soften a little bit and preheat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Line a small baking sheet with a sheet of paper towel. Slice 3 medium-sized tomatoes in 1/2 inch thick slices and place on the sheet pan. This step might sound like an extra step, but getting rid of some of the juices of the tomatoes will help us prevent a soggy galette in the end. Sprinkle each slice with a pinch of salt. Bring in a piece of parchment paper and lightly dust it with a little bit of flour. Gently roll the dough into a 12-inch circle. I find that it is easier to transfer the galette dough onto the baking sheet when you roll it on a piece of parchment. Spread it evenly with the goat cheese mixture. and top it off with tomatoes. It is okay for tomatoes to overlap as they will shrink during the baking process. Roll the sides of the dough overlapping as you go around and pleating the dough. Brush the outer crust with an egg wash. Bake for 40 to 45 minutes or until the crust turns golden brown. Transfer the galette onto a wire rack to cool before serving. If you have it, for a little bit more flavor, top it off with fresh basil. And finally, slice it up and enjoy a big piece for yourself. There you have it, friends, a fairly straightforward yet delicious savory galette recipe to use all the tomatoes that are currently in abundance. Before I let you go, a few things. As it is the case with most pies and tarts, this galette is best on the day it is baked. However, if you place it in an airtight container after it is fully cooled down and keep it in the fridge, it will still be good the next day. When you're ready to serve, warm it in a low heat oven for about 8 to 10 minutes so it is nice and warm. And if you're a fan of galettes, I also have a recipe for a sweet version made with fresh peaches and blueberries that is a perfect summer dessert. If you make it, do yourself a favor, be sure to top it off with a big scoop of ice cream. I mean, just saying. As always, the links to everything I mentioned in this video, along with timestamps and the recipes, are in the description. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment and I'll be more than happy to help in any way I can. Thanks to our friends at Vermont Creamery for crafting the most delicious and thoughtful products for home cooks like myself, and also for sponsoring this video. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this video. I'll see you next time.